everybody. How are you doing today? I hope you're having an amazing week. This week, I'm going to take a little bit of time to answer a question that was proposed to me. So the question was, how do I relearn to love myself without the degrees, without the finances, without meeting beauty standards, basically without resources? And this is a really great question because it's a really hard thing to do sometimes. When we are feeling that, usually we are feeling some of our worst. But that's the key right there. We're feeling some of our worst. So we have to stop all the negative talk. You have to stop reminding yourself what you can't do and start reminding yourself what you can and what you have done. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So without, I'm going to use the specific examples given, and then we're going to even talk about some more. Without degrees are accomplishments. When it comes to being proud of yourself about your accomplishments, it doesn't matter the things you haven't accomplished. It matters the things you have. So make a list of the things you have accomplished. Even before I got my degrees, I had been on a swim team at school. I had accomplishments there, mostly personal ones. I had learned how to play basketball and baseball and run track, and I was terrible at all of them. I'd learned that I was terrible at all of them, but I had done them. Let's see. I was always a good student. I got A's and B's. So, what have you done? What are your accomplishments? I had been able to experience lots of different clubs while I was in school. I had gotten involved with them and taken leadership positions. And all of that stuff was free from the schools I was attending. Now, if you're an adult and you still haven't been able to go to college or get a degree, there's so many reasons that can prevent someone from making that happen. So it's still, what have you done? What jobs have you had? Have you raised kids? Maybe kids came before education. That's an accomplishment. What are things you have learned? Learning in and of itself, first of all, is an accomplishment. And then finding out what you're good at, what you're not good at, that in and of itself is an accomplishment. So I basically make a list of things you have done. I wanted to give you some ideas to kickstart your brain, to give you the credit you deserve for the things you've done. So I hope you can make that list. Sorry, I apologize. We're still getting over a little bit of this flu and cold congestion we've had around our house this week. Think of those around you. What are your friends and family proud of you for doing? Do you have kids? What have your kids learned from you? What kinds of things do you strive to teach your kids? All those things are accomplishments. Now let's take a look at without finances. There was a time for many years, my husband and I were living off of, $1,000, $1,500 a month. I mean, don't even ask me how we made it, especially since rent was most of that money, right? And so we didn't always have resources, but I was working a terrible job, but I was working. And remind yourself that's an accomplishment. We were saving money. You know, it wasn't a lot. It might have been $5 here, $2 there. Wherever we could squirrel it away, we would. And sometimes we would end up having to use all of that money to pay for something that came up. And went our savings again. But you know what? We had saved that money and it was able to pay for that thing that came up. That is an accomplishment. So yeah, you may not have a plethora of resources all the time. That's okay. I know a lady in my company shares her story often, and she should. It's an amazing story. When she started her business with us, she had one light bulb, and she had kids, and they all lived in this house. They had one light bulb, and they would take it out of one room to go put it in another. If one of them needed to use the bathroom, they would take the light bulb, go put it in the bathroom so they could use the restroom. So, and they just transferred the light bulb around. And then she started this business, and she started bringing in a little bit of extra cash at first. And she moved on from there to being one of our top national sales directors. It's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. So if all you have is this tiniest amount, do something with it and save what you can, invest what you can. And sometimes we get so caught up in the, finally I can do this thing, when you do get some finances, but is that thing going to help you grow? When you're in these situations, you've got to ask the really tough questions. Like this really sucks that I have to answer this question this way or this way. Like, I should be able to do both. You're right. You should be able to have both food and water and heating or air conditioning, depending on the season. You shouldn't have to ask yourself, are we going to eat today or are we going to heat the house? We had to ask that so many times. And it's the worst. You shouldn't have to ask those questions to yourself. But if you're in a position that you have to ask those questions, make those tough calls. Am I going to get my kid a Christmas or birthday present right now, or am I going to invest this money into something that I can utilize to make more money, like taking a class so that we can do more, or learning how to do something so that I can go do that as a profession and make more money. We came across when I first started my business. Here's a great example. When I first started my business, my husband and I were in that situation again. We were living with my parents in their house because we had to leave our previous jobs. And I was working at a preschool, not a good enough income to live off of by itself. My husband was working in in-home care, all like night shift. So he was never home, at least not when the girls and I were home. And so he hardly got to see us. We hardly got to see him. That income wasn't a whole lot better than my income. Together, we couldn't afford our own place. And so when I started my business, I really started it so that I could get my products at a discount, and I didn't, I could try to keep using them instead of losing my skincare that I loved so dearly and took care of my skin and made me look and feel my best, right? But then I heard the business plan and I said, you know what? My husband and I talked and we said, you know what? We need to try this. And it brought in enough money with the small amount of hours that I had left in my life at the time to work the business. It brought in just enough that we chose to use that money to pay for my husband to go get his teaching certificate. And then he could teach. And together, now our incomes were able to help us buy a house and start doing things for our kids. It was a sucky choice to have to finally make. Instead of being able to afford some things that we'd been putting off on affording, like a new car, because ours were dying right and left. In fact, we'd finally had to just get rid of one, and we both worked different jobs. You know, we made the choice to have one of us learn a new thing that would get us a different career. And unbeknownst to us, the small business I was working, bringing in that little bit extra chump change, was enough then to keep me going to where now I've grown and it's also an extra income. So sometimes you have to ask those hard questions, make those sucky, tough decisions, but they have to be made sometimes. So when you don't have the resources, you don't have the accomplishments you want to have, don't worry about it. Look at what you have accomplished. Look at what you do have and make the tough choices. Realize what you're teaching the people around you, what you always want to show about yourself, and go with it. And I know this is getting long, so I'm going to stop here. But if you have further questions, if more stuff pops up from this, I'm happy to chat about it some more. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. If you relate to this, like it. If you know someone who could use this information, share the video, comment below thoughts that come to your mind, the aha moments that you have, the targets that you're trying to reach, and I hope you have a great week. Love you guys.